Hi, I'm Kat Nolan, Head of Valuation at Centrick.
And I'm Helen Meeten, Head of Asset Management, and we're here today to talk about HMOs.
So an HMO stands for House of Multiple Occupation. It is a property that is let to three unrelated parties. We can have smaller HMOs which are unlicensed, which would be up to 3 people, and 4 and above would be a licensed HMO. Most HMOs will involve shared kitchen and possibly bathroom facilities, and there are minimum room sizes depending on whether they are single or double occupancy and whether they have ensuite facilities.
Before you let out your property, the first important thing to do is to check with the local authority where your property sits. Usually you can find information on the council's website, but it's important to check which licence, if any, applies to your property. Check the criteria that are involved with the application and check how you would submit that application. Sometimes it can be on paper and sometimes it's via their website. So Kat, what affects how you approach valuing an HMO?
There are a number of factors, Helen, that we will look at. Firstly, the size of the HMO, so whether it falls into planning use class C3 or C4. For smaller HMOs, we tend to adopt what we call the comparable approach, and then for a larger HMO, we would adopt what we call the investment approach, where we look at the actual income that the landlord's receiving from the various rooms that are let out. Another sort of important factor is whether the property is in an Article 4 area, which basically means that it would need planning consent to change between the 2 different planning use classes. We also would look at number of vacant rooms and potentially whether there's any work that's being proposed for the landlord proposes to do to the property. From an asset management perspective, what are the key health and safety regulations you would look at?
So there's lots of things to kind of factor in, which I think is where landlords can fall down without using a professional agent. So if we are onboarding this type of portfolio, we would always complete a gap analysis, which would ensure that we have typically a gas safety certificate, an EICR, portable appliance testing. We would always complete an FRA for the property. Usually that would then bring up the need for a fire door survey. We would put fire alarm contracts in place, emergency light contracts. Again, it's important just to check with the local authority just in case they have any specific requirements, but typically those would be the items that we would have on our checklist. What would you expect the typical return on investment to be on a HMO?
So there's no straightforward answer to this basically, Helen. The return on investment, or what we call the yield, is going to differ from property to property. Location is a big factor, so you do find that you'll get yield hotspots in cities, certainly around student areas. In terms of kind of HMO versus a single let, the reason that a lot of landlords now prefer the HMO model is that you've got a number of tenants within a property, so your risk of a void, 100% void, is lower. You can rotate your tenants, and also I think in certainly in bigger HMOs, sort of having the regulation means that everyone knows kind of where they stand, and it kind of really impacts on kind of quality. So obviously the HMOs that we see that have been fitted out to a very high specification do tend to get the best returns, and also they're the sort of product really that attracts the most market interest. So again, kind of going back to your void rates, you're going to have much fewer gaps in a high quality HMO, which is obviously going to lead to a higher return. So overall, I think HMOs can be a good investment. There are lots of factors to consider.
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Centrick.